There is a thought that returns without invitation. Not dramatically, not with the intensity of a crisis. That would at least be legible, something to respond to. This is quieter than that, more patient. It arrives at the still moments, driving or in the middle of something that should be occupying your attention, or in the particular quiet of a late evening when the noise of the day has gone. It is about something that happened. A decision that was made by you or to you, or by circumstances that included you and ignored your preferences entirely. Something that, given a chance at a different version, you would have changed. A moment that turned in a direction you would not have chosen. A relationship that ended before it should have, or continued past the point it should have, or never quite became what it was supposed to be. A time that was lost, somehow, to something that didn't deserve it. The thought returns to it, sits there. Not quite grief. You have grieved this, perhaps, or moved past the sharpest version of the feeling. Something subtler. The quiet resistance to what happened. The sense that the past is carrying something that should have been different, and isn't. And you know that the past cannot be changed. This knowledge is not new. It does not require a philosophical framework to establish. You have known it for years. And the knowledge has never reduced the weight. That gap between understanding intellectually that the past is over and feeling the full emotional freedom of that understanding is what this episode is about. Not to offer a quick reframe, not to suggest that what happened wasn't difficult, or that the resentment isn't understandable, or that the regret doesn't reflect something real, but to offer what the Stoics understood, and what modern psychology has since confirmed. There is a way to stop fighting what has already happened. And it begins not with letting go, but with picking up. Let me be clear about what this episode is not. It is not an argument that suffering is good. It is not a suggestion that what happened, whatever it was meant to be, or was necessary, or should be reframed as secretly positive. It is not toxic positivity dressed in philosophical language. What happened, happened. If it was wrong, it was wrong. If it was a genuine loss, it was a genuine loss. If someone caused it and bears responsibility for it, that is real. Nothing in this episode is meant to obscure any of that. What the episode is about is something more specific. The relationship a man maintains with his own history. What he does with it. Whether it remains, over time, a weight that accompanies him through everything that comes next, or whether it becomes, as the Stoics believed it could become, the raw material from which something forward is built. This is not a question of whether the past was fair. It probably wasn't in many cases. Very little is. It is a question of what is going to be done with it. And the man who can answer that question, not abstractly, not as a coping technique, but as a genuine philosophical and psychological orientation to his own history, has access to something that the man who cannot answer it does not. He has access to his own experience as an asset, rather than a weight. The most common form of advice given to men carrying the weight of the past is some version of, you need to accept it. You need to let go. You need to move on. This advice is not wrong as a direction. It is simply not the instruction manual. Because knowing that you need to accept something does not produce acceptance. knowing that you should let go, does not produce release. Understanding intellectually that the past is over does not change the emotional register in which it is experienced. The gap between intellectual understanding and emotional reality is well documented in psychology, and EP019 addressed it in the context of the overthinking loop. The same gap operates here. You understand that the resentment is not serving you, that the regret about the decision is not producing anything useful, that the argument you are having internally with what happened is an argument with something that cannot hear you and cannot respond. You understand this completely, and the weight remains. This is because understanding is not the mechanism of change. Acceptance, genuine acceptance, not the verbal assertion of it, is not produced by knowing that acceptance is warranted. It is produced by a different process. A process that involves engaging with the experience more directly, not less, turning toward it, rather than trying to reason past it. The psychological research on post-traumatic growth, which we will examine in detail in a moment, is specific about this. The men and women who most successfully integrated difficult experiences and built something forward from them were not the ones who moved away from those experiences most quickly. They were the ones who engaged with them most honestly, who allowed themselves to be genuinely affected, who struggled with the integration rather than suppressing or avoiding it, and who eventually arrived at a relationship with the experience that was neither denial nor surrender. Before we can examine what the alternative looks like, it is worth being clear about what the resistance is costing. The ongoing argument with what happened, the resentment, the regret, the counterfactual thinking about how things should have been different, is not a passive experience. It is active. It consumes attention, energy, and emotional bandwidth that could otherwise be available for the present. The man who is spending a portion of his daily psychological resources on the argument with his past is living with a smaller effective capacity than his circumstances might suggest. He can function, he can achieve things, he can build things in the present, while simultaneously fighting the past, but part of him is not here. Part of him is back there, with the decision that went wrong, or the person who caused the damage, or the version of the future that was possible and didn't materialize. This is the specific cost of resistance that most framings miss, not dramatic impairment, the chronic, low-grade diversion of resources to a process that is not producing anything. The argument with the past is not entirely irrational either. Some of the energy invested in it is the legitimate work of processing, the natural human attempt to understand what happened and integrate it. This work is real and necessary. But most men in this situation are not in the processing phase. They are in what has become a habitual pattern. The thought returns, the resistance is engaged, the argument runs for a while, and nothing resolves. Because there is nothing to resolve. The past is not going to change its position. The argument cannot be won. And each time the argument runs without resolution, it consumes something without producing anything. The Stoic diagnosis of this is precise. It is suffering chosen voluntarily. Not the original difficulty. That was not chosen. The continued resistance to it. That is chosen, in the sense that the mind has found no way to put it down. In the 1990s, psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun began documenting something that had been noticed but not systematically studied in the field of trauma research. People who had experienced significant adversity,
and who had survived and continued did not simply return to their pre-adversity level of functioning. A significant proportion reported positive psychological changes that emerged from or alongside the struggle to integrate what had happened. Changes in self-perception, in relationships, in appreciation for life, in the sense of new possibilities, in existential and spiritual orientation. They called this post-traumatic growth.
The term requires careful handling because it is frequently misunderstood. Post-traumatic growth is not the absence of suffering. It does not mean the adversity is reframed as secretly positive, or that the person no longer carries the weight of what happened. Tedeschi and Calhoun were explicit. Growth often coexists with ongoing distress. The two are not mutually exclusive. The presence of growth does not mean the absence of pain. What growth means, in their framework, is a positive psychological change in relation to 5 specific domains: personal strength, a revised sense of one's own resilience and capability, new possibilities, pathways and orientations that become visible as a result of the disruption, relating to others, deeper connection to and appreciation of other people, appreciation for life, changed priorities and a heightened sense of what matters, and spiritual or existential change, shifts in one's framework for understanding one's life and its meaning. These changes are not automatic. They are not produced by adversity itself. They are produced by the struggle to integrate adversity, the active, often uncomfortable process of engaging with what happened, making meaning from it, and constructing a narrative in which it belongs to one's life, rather than being an interruption of it. The men who do not experience growth are not less resilient in the ordinary sense. They may be functioning perfectly well, but they have typically found a way to manage the experience without fully integrating it, to carry it at a distance, to suppress it, to cope around it. And in doing so, they have also kept at a distance the growth that integration would have produced. The adversity was not the difference. The engagement with the adversity was. The Stoic philosophical tradition offers, in the concept of Amor Fati, what is perhaps the most demanding and the most liberating possible orientation to the past. Amor Fati, love of fate, does not mean acceptance in the passive sense. It does not mean agreeing that what happened was good, or that the agent who caused harm bears no responsibility, or that the loss should not be grieved. It means something more specific and more radical. It means receiving everything that has happened, including the worst of it, as fully yours. Not as something that happened to you, as something that is now part of the material from which your life is made. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." This is not an encouraging metaphor. It is a philosophical position. The fire does not evaluate what is thrown into it. It does not distinguish between preferred fuel and unpreferred fuel. It does not argue with the material. It receives it and transforms it into light and heat. The man who has internalized Amor Fati is not pretending that the difficult thing was welcome. He is choosing, deliberately, to receive it as the fire receives fuel, as material, as something that is now his, that now belongs to the story, that is now available to be made into something. Marcus did not have an easy reign. He governed through 2 decades of war, a plague that killed millions, the deaths of several of his children, the persistent threat of political betrayal,
and the ongoing demands of an empire that required him to spend years away from the philosophy he loved. He did not write the meditations from comfort. He wrote them from the middle of difficulty. And what they reveal is not a man who had made peace with his circumstances in some transcendent sense. They reveal a man who was working, day by day, with genuine effort and genuine discipline to receive his actual life, all of it, as his own. Not as an obstacle, as the material. Let me be specific about what integration of the past actually looks like in practice, because the philosophical language can make it seem more abstract than it is. Integration is not forgiveness, necessarily. It is not the ending of all resentment or the elimination of all regret. It is not the construction of a narrative in which the difficult thing turns out to have been secretly good. It is something more honest than any of those. It is the recognition that what happened is now part of you. Not part of you in the sense of defining you, but part of you in the sense of belonging to your history, the material from which the present is being built. And from that recognition, the question that integration requires: what has this experience made available to me that was not available before? This question is deliberately uncomfortable when the resistance is still strong. The resentment says nothing. The grief says, I would rather not have had the growth. And both of those responses are understandable. But the question is not asking for a cheerful answer. It is asking for an honest one. Because in most cases, not all, not always, but in most, the honest answer includes something real. The betrayal that revealed what the man is capable of surviving. The failure that showed him where his actual competence ends and where genuine growth is needed. The loss that taught him what he actually values. The difficult period that produced a clarity about what matters that the comfortable period before it never had occasion to produce. These are not small things. They are not comfort prizes for suffering. They are genuine assets, the specific knowledge and strength and clarity that the experience produced. The man who can name them is not pretending that the experience was welcome. He is claiming something from it. He is doing what the fire does. Integration does not happen in a single session. It is a process, ongoing, sometimes non-linear, requiring patience with the parts that resist and honesty with the parts that remain. But it begins with a single question, held seriously and returned to over time. What has this experience made available to me that was not available before? If the resistance is strong, begin with something smaller. What have I learned about myself, about what I can tolerate, what I value, what I need, that I could only have learned through this? What capacity do I have now that I did not have before this happened? What am I able to understand about other people, their pain, their struggle, their specific forms of difficulty that I could not have understood from the outside? What do I know about what actually matters that I could only know from the experience of losing something? These questions are not designed to make the experience good. They are designed to make it yours, to locate within it something that can be carried forward, rather than only carried. Tedeschi and Calhoun found that the men and women who reported the highest levels of post-traumatic growth were not the ones who suffered most or least. They were the ones who engaged most honestly with the integration process. who allowed themselves to be changed by what happened, rather than simply surviving it and moving past it. Being changed by what happened, that is not the same as being defined by it. It is the claim, the active, deliberate claim, that what was experienced is now part of the available material. And the man who can make that claim, who can look at what he has been through and identify what it has made possible, is no longer fighting his past. He is using it.
Come back to the thought that arrives without invitation. The return to what should have been different. The resistance to what actually was. I want to say something about that thought that most frameworks about the past do not say. The return is not the enemy. The thought returning is not evidence of failure to accept or failure to heal or failure to move on. It is the mind attempting, in the only way it knows how, to integrate something that has not yet been fully integrated. The return is part of the process. What changes as integration progresses is not the frequency of return, not immediately. It is the quality of the experience when the thought returns. The man who is fighting his past returns to it with resistance. The thought carries the full weight of what was wrong, the resentment, the grief, the argument with what should have been different. Each return is another round in a fight that cannot be won. The man who has begun integration returns to it with something different. Not peace, necessarily. Not the cheerful acceptance of what was genuinely difficult, but a relationship to the experience that is less adversarial. The thought returns, and it is received as material, as part of the story, as something that belongs. Marcus Aurelius returned to his difficulties again and again in the Meditations. He did not resolve them cleanly and move on. He received them, worked with them, and continued. Amor Fati is not a destination. It is a practice, a daily, repeated choice to receive what has been, all of it, as the material from which forward is built. The past is not the obstacle to your life. It is, if you are willing to receive it as such, the material your life is made of. Claim it. Here's the one thing worth carrying. Resentment is the refusal to use your own experience. Every difficulty you have been through is material. The fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it. It does not ask whether the fuel was preferred. You have had things thrown into you. Some of it was not asked for and was not fair. All of it is yours now. The question is whether you will fight it and keep paying the cost of a war that cannot be won, or claim it and build. I'll see you in the next one.